Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we dive deep into the multifaceted world of parenting, exploring the joys, the challenges, and everything in between. I'm Carol Maletta, your host, and today we truly have a special episode for all of our listeners. Joining us is a remarkable guest, Rodney C. Burris. Rodney's journey is one of resilience and triumph, a narrative that takes us from the tough neighborhoods of Baltimore and Jacksonville to the forefront of emotional intelligence training in America. He is a proud father of 5. His experiences have shaped his unique perspective on parenting and emotional intelligence. I can't wait to combine the two in this conversation. Rodney brings a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he's not just an expert in emotional intelligence, he's a living testament to its power, from empowering organizations with his workshops to authoring a best-selling book on emotional intelligence. Rodney's impact stretches far and wide. But today, he's here to share his personal side, discussing how emotional intelligence intertwines with his role as a father. We're going to explore his daily routines, his approach to celebrating differences, and how he nurtures each of his children's unique sweet spots. Plus, we're going to dive into the importance of community in emotional and parental development. So whether you're a parent, a guardian, or just someone interested in the profound impact of emotional intelligence on our lives and our relationships, this is the episode for you. So let's welcome Rodney C. Burris.
Wow. Carol, that was so wonderful. I'm going to have to snippet that and get that emblazoned everywhere. I really appreciate the intro.
Oh, awesome. So, why don't you, go on and start telling us about your upbringing in Baltimore and Jacksonville and the challenges, a little bit about the challenges you faced and how that's influenced your understanding
Absolutely.
Of emotional intelligence and how you practice it as an individual and as a dad.
So I want to start there, Carol, if we may. I want to start with the intersection between understanding my role as dad, right? Mm-hmm. And how it relates directly to emotional intelligence, but most specifically, how it relates to something called feeling bad. Okay. So what I didn't know growing up, right? Nobody is born being an emotional intelligence expert. What does that even mean, right? So let me just fast forward. My oldest twins, we have 5 children. I like to tell everybody, guys, that my wife has a lot of kids. She has 5. I'm just around for the ride. No, but we have 5 children. And our oldest children are twins, Aaliyah and Anthony. And they're stair steps. So they're 18-year-olds. Then we have a 16-year-old son who's doing phenomenal in school. His school here in Baltimore is a blue ribbon school. It's one of the top 5% of schools in the nation. My daughter goes to another great school. And then we have this little guy who's 10. So I got 4 teenagers and then this 10-year-old because somebody left the gate open, Karen. But what I wanted to touch on, Carol, was I didn't know the difference between something that doesn't feel so great to me versus something that's actually wrong.
Okay.
As a parent, right? And so sometimes we can conflate the two. If I don't like it and I don't really have words around why I just know it's like, I don't really, it's very easy for us as people to attribute that as something that is wrong. Right? And that's not necessarily the case. Just because it doesn't suit my palate or my preference, it doesn't necessarily mean that my child is doing something wrong. Or to make it more personal, it doesn't mean that I as a parent am doing something wrong. So let me give you a very clear case in point. My oldest daughter is going to be a phenomenal culinary professional. And when she was about maybe 12 years old, I said, Aaliyah, if we approach this the right kind of way, we can gain all of these experiences throughout your teenage years so that by the time you're in your early 20s, you're 23 years old, you will have worked catering, cashier, you fast food, restaurant quality, you've been a server, you've got certifications, all of this kind of stuff. And it sounded like a great idea. She has demonstrated that all kids play cooking, right? All kids play house, all kids go to the grocery store. But this child had an affinity, right? She had like a knack for, I remember Carol, she was 3 years old, she would sit down on the floor, cross-legged, and she would stir one of her feet like a pot or a bowl. And then she would scoop it out with some imaginary spoon and feed her other foot that was the baby, right? So she just always played food and eating and cooking. And so I knew early on, I remember when I first was letting her place cold items into the oven. So the oven wasn't turned on. I was letting her put it in. And then eventually, like the next year, I would let her take them out with oven mitts. And she was terrified to do that. This is when she was an older child, maybe like 10 or 11 or something like that. All of that to say, I knew where our conversations was going and I know what I said to her.
Right.
But my wife and I went to a pretty prestigious school with a name, and my wife did really well and had a full ride, and I graduated on the dean's list. And here I am helping my oldest daughter, go into a trade. Right? Not Cornell, not Harvard, not Yale. I went to Hopkins. We went to Johns Hopkins University here.
Right.
I was getting letters from Princeton and all of that kind of stuff when I was going through high school. And here I am actively encouraging and participating my daughter to kind of forego all of that and go into cooking as a trade.
Sure.
And Carol, when I tell you I struggled.
Yeah.
I struggled with, am I doing the right thing? Is my reluctance against this real? Like, do I actually have a problem with this, or am I worried about perception?
There you go. That's what I was thinking.
Like all of these, well, you know what we do, and there's definitely pockets of people that use this phrase right here, and maybe some of our friends and guests are familiar with this. It just made me feel some kind of way, right? And I just felt the kind of way. Well, like, hold on, what kind of way?
Right.
Like, let's use our words. Like, what do we mean? I just don't like it. Okay, well, that's better, but let's keep going. And as I dug down, and this was about a 2 or 3 year process. This was not like because I started really challenging myself around this or feeling the discomfort around it at 12 or 13. She's 18 now. Right? So it took some years until she was about 16 or 17, to be honest with you, that I finally was like, Chris. So my middle name is Christopher. That's what the C stands for. Okay. So sometimes I call myself what my family called me growing up, which is Chris. And I was like, Chris, this is okay. Okay, so that's one of my wife's 5, right? Let's keep on going down the list. My oldest son has taken apart every VCR, Carol, every DVD. There is not a device in this house that has a little bit of age on it that has not been in microchips and screws across his floor, right? Dad, you don't need this anymore. Go ahead, son. He loves fixing. He loves tinkering. He loves cars. We've known for a long time that he's going to go into engineering, right? He's going to be an engineer. And I put him in positions to really he has a great mind. He's very intelligent. He loves cars. And it took me forever to realize, like, son, we could do automotive engineering. I had no idea for the line. I know we do computers or electrical or whatever. We decided to go into automotive engineering. And then about a year ago, my oldest son said, Dad, out of everything that deals with design and engineering of the car, I love being under the hood, man.
Okay.
So no, emotional intelligence. Because look at his dad here. His dad heard I'm failing again because not Cornell, not Hopkins, not Harvard.
Right.
Auto mechanic, right? Wrench, overalls, right? Earl on my name tag, right?
Right.
Like, this is what his dad is hearing, like, oh no. But I have seen him sitting with me as we're eating a burger. A car goes by, and he's like, Dad, that's a Hemi Challenger. I wouldn't have never known that.
Right.
So I know this, right? but I'm having internal struggles. And what I believe is easiest for us to do as parents is
Mm-hmm.
reinterpret those internal struggles
Mm-hmm.
as you kid are not doing something right. You're doing something
Yes.
wrong. Let me help you correct. I struggled with that,
I
Carol.
I can definitely relate to that. And we both have twins. I have
Yeah.
twin sons. And I can remember that's really what made me go into parent education, because I can
Mm,
remember, looking at, even as young children, toddlers, how they were different from each other for sure, but very different from me. They both had pieces of me, but they're
uh-huh.
pretty different from me. And one child is just he just has this joy of life, and just ran headfirst into everything. And I was just like, initially, like, I wish he would just calm down. And I knew that I could very easily try to get him to conform to maybe what the other son was more like. He was more laid back and quiet and all of that, or just something that would be more comfortable for me to be the parent. And
Yes.
I really had to stop that. I mean, and I'm glad I kind of picked up on that when they were still very young. They were still toddlers, because I could see in each of them, the one that was super quiet, I could see where his being so observant and thinking and being introspective, even at that age, would serve him well, even though there might be other times when we do have to give him skills to be more vocal and all of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then
Think
my
about it.
other son, with that energy and passion, we just have to
Yeah.
channel that in the right way, because every time, every situation that we're in is not the right time for all that. But that we could learn how to use it in the right situations. And so I'm so thankful that I kind of got that message when they were still kind of young, when I was
Well, you
still,
need to start a parenting podcast, Carol. That's what you should. You should start a parenting podcast for those of us who
I think
don't
I
get
will.
the message.
I think I'm going to do.
Right.
I think I'm going to do.
Consider that.
Yeah.
Because,
So, but
and
yeah,
then,
but I definitely can relate to that.
yeah.
Where you kind of have, because I definitely had my own ideas. I thought, in fact, I was going to be home with them for 4 or 5 months, head on back to corporate marketing, like get them all set on a routine, whatever, and go
Uh-huh.
on back
Uh-huh.
about my business, because this was going to be easy parenting them. Matter of fact, twins was going to be great. It's going to be summer camp in this house. So, I thought it was going to be like that. And they just shattered all the
They
myths.
went through all of that. You know something else I struggle with too? And this is very recent parenting. So I'm not even talking about the pre-K years and the fifth grade and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to keep it right at the twins since we're twinning right now. Um, so my oldest daughter, uh, she she decided to get a tattoo. They're 18.
Yep.
She's covering a lot of things on her own. She's still mommy and dad's us for things, right? But I have been conditioning them to go out into the world to be interdependent, not codependent, right? But interdependent on each other, because I grew up, my own upbringing, I was very much kind of like barred from family. That's a long story. I would love to get into it, but I would be talking your head off, Karen, if we did that. But I really wanted to foster a culture between my children that
Yeah.
you guys can be siblings, that you can have a bond that's a sibling bond, right? Well, so anyway, my oldest daughter decides to go off and get a tattoo.
Right.
Mind you, she had been her and my oldest son had been talking to me about this for a while, like
Mm.
thinking about it individually, right?
Right.
Thinking
Right.
about it, thinking about it for at least like the past 3-4 years, right? Since they were like 15-ish or so.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter's like, Dad, I think I'm gonna go do it.
Okay.
And I was like, Did you talk to mom yet? She's like, I don't want to tell mom right now. I want to show her after I do it.
Mm.
Okay. My whole life with them, one of the other emotional check-ins, right, is this idea that my role is to also play traffic cop a little bit, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
bridge maker, right? Like mediator, maybe. maybe not, because my wife, and it's funny that I'm about to phrase it like this, because the way I'm about to state this didn't come to me this way years ago when they were small. It was the inverse, right? The revelation that I'm about to share. My wife has been their parent as long as I have,
Mhm.
and deserves to have her own space, dynamic relationship with them. The way it came to me years ago when they were small, before we even had some of them other scragglers, it came to me. I had the idea that mom was always right when they were like 3 and 2 and stuff like that. And so for a while in my own parenting, Carol, I didn't feel I had a voice. I felt
Mm,
like my voice was subservient as a parent
mm.
because mom knows best and mom gives what they need. And I remember, I don't know if an older gentleman put this in my idea, or I don't know if an apple fell on my head like Newton. I don't know where it came from. But one day the idea is like, I, she's been a parent as long as I have, and vice versa. There's no like edge there. I could never, in my belief, I don't believe, as much as I love and nurture my children, that I can mother them
Right.
the way that she can. Um, and to quote one of my homies who's always been funny, vice versa, uh, I can't her being tough on them or putting her foot down is not the same thing as the fathering that comes with that kind of like dad relationship, right? When I really became aware of that, I had to go through this whole series of unlearning and
Mm,
then relearning.
mm,
Because although I believe that statement, that novel idea, I didn't embrace it. It wasn't mine to own. I hadn't internalized it. I still thought mom knew best. And
right.
so, but we're in a society where two parents go to court, mom more than likely is going to get it, right? Child support is a dad thing. And all of, if the
Mhm.
parents split up, it's almost a given, no, in our society, that the
Sure.
children go with mom, right? And so being indoctrinated in this society, I
Sure.
kind of like believe those sort of ideas, right? So it took me a while to kind of grow through that. Fast forward to the 18-year-old tattoo. Okay. So she goes and she gets this tattoo. She comes home when I'm not home. I
Oh.
traveling all the time. I probably was at some conference, who knows, speaker con, who knows where I was. Um, but I get a message that, dad, I told mom, and mom is really upset.
Oh.
Now, my wife is the epitome of someone who embodies rule sets and following order and protocol. There is a proper way to do everything. Those things must be done in those ways, etc. And she has been a great balance for me because it helps check boxes that I wouldn't check. And I've been a great balance for her to be like, hey, 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 let's breathe. Let's breathe.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm.
Let's live a little bit, right? Let's do a little something different, right? And she's like, well, what about that? And I'm like, we're gonna put it down. It's nothing's gonna mess up, right? So that's kind of like my interaction with her. Well, she didn't believe that her daughter should get a tattoo for whatever her reasons were.
Mhm.
And I remember struggling with the idea of calling her
Mm.
and letting her know, hey, just because of how I open, just because Aaliyah's doing something that we don't like or that you don't prefer, it doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
That's what partners are for. I didn't have peace about that conversation. So now I'm doing internal emotional checks, right? I'm going through my checklist, Carol, because I'm like, is my, I don't have peace about having this conversation. Is that fear, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Is that discomfort? Where's that discomfort coming from?
mhm.
Is it, I didn't know. So I'm checking. I'm like, I'm asking, I'm checking. And what I realized is it's not my role to parent my wife, the mother of those children. And
Right.
it is her right, unless it was something egregious.
Sure.
This isn't egregious. It is her right to approve, disapprove, and have any relationship.
There you go. That's what I was getting ready to say. That her response to that is part of the dynamics of that relationship between your wife and your daughter. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
those emotional check-ins, Carol, as parents,
Mhm.
right? Because all of these children, even if we adopt them, even if they're foster kids, like if we're grandparenting them or whatever it is, if we have bonus children in our house that comes from family or friends, or however the dynamic is, there are people that are also involved.
Right.
1, 2, 3, multiple people. And unless they are doing something that is clearly wrong, if it's just, I wouldn't do it that way.
Exactly.
But it's hard for us to distinguish that sometimes, right? Because I wouldn't do it that way and wrong for most of us is a sandwich. They go together.
Exactly. Exactly.
We'll be right back after this.
If you're looking to reach a massive audience of parents and caregivers, then look no further than ProPix by the Parenting 411, the ultimate marketing program designed to skyrocket your brand to new heights. With ProPix, we've created 3 incredible packages to suit your marketing needs and budget. So let's take a look. First up is our social starter package. You'll receive a stunning graphic promo piece, plus we'll also feature your brand on the Parenting 411 Instagram page. It's the perfect way to make a memorable first impression and get parents buzzing about your business. Now, if you're ready to level up, our Parenting Pro package is where it's at. You'll enjoy all the benefits of the social starter package, plus more awesome benefits, including exposure on the Parenting 411 podcast, which reaches parents in more than 22 countries each week. But wait, there's more. For those seeking the pinnacle of marketing power, our Elite Exposure package is the way to go. You'll get even more exposure across our platform, including thousands of followers and connections on LinkedIn. Get ready to dominate the airwaves and establish yourself as the go-to resource for families everywhere. Take advantage of ProPix by the Parenting 411 today and unlock unparalleled marketing opportunities for your business. But I should tell you that prices are set to increase on November 1st, so act now. ProPix by the Parenting 411 is your passport to the hearts and minds of parents. Visit ProPixbyP411.com. Join us today and watch the magic happen.
And we're back with the Parenting 411.
Yeah, that's definitely it. I mean, I just think it's just so important for parents to get on the same page about the end goal. And or about if it's certain boundaries or certain limits, upholding the limit, but giving them flexibility within the confines of their relationship, their unique attachment to each child to get it done. So
sometimes, right? It's tough, especially when the feeling of it doesn't feel so good. So part of my discomfort that I was struggling with when I was doing my little checklist, I was feeling empathy for my daughter's hurt because my daughter wanted to hear, "Mommy, look, I did a thing."
Right.
What she believed she felt was rejection. You did something bad you. And here's the other piece about it, Carol. I wasn't even there. Right. So although I do have almost 20 years of observing their relationship, I wasn't there for this. I'm not crazy, right? Like I have a good idea of these two people and their dynamic. Right. I have an idea of how that conversation probably went. But at the same time, I would have been calling or bringing it up in person later based on what my daughter said, you said, what had happened. And at the end of the day, this has been maybe a few months. This is a very recent situation, maybe less than a few months. It hasn't come up again. It's over.
Okay.
It's over.
Right.
So had I chosen to fight the battle because I wasn't feeling good without doing the check-in, and that's important for us to do. It's important for us to grow collectively beyond I'm feeling some kind of way. I don't like that. I just don't like it. That's just how I am. I've never been the type. Got it. But what does it actually mean? at the end of the day, what are we really trying to say? What are we really trying to accomplish? Because those things, it's like, you know why I really don't like it? I really don't like it because of whatever that thing is. And maybe it has nothing to do with my kid.
Right.
Maybe it has nothing to do with us.
Probably has nothing to do with your kid. Yeah.
Maybe it was that. Yeah, go ahead,
Because
Carol.
we're coming in, I mean, we're coming into this experience, this
Yeah.
parenting experience with all kinds of baggage, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word, but experiences and that have shaped us. I mean, some of
Yes.
them might, and even missed opportunities or whatever.
Wow.
You find yourself wanting your child to do something that you never got to do. And guess what? They're not interested and they don't want to do that. And so, and then also there are hurts and limitations, dynamics of your own relationship with your parents. And that doesn't make it negative or whatever, but it just was. And you're bringing that in. And so that check-in, that emotional check-in that you're talking about is really crucial. And it's about being fair to your child who knows nothing about all this stuff or how what's affecting you, and being, also being fair to yourself, because you're feeling uncomfortable, you don't know why, you think maybe this is making you a bad person or whatever, and it's like, no, you're just drawing from something from your own life. You just need to be aware of it. Make sure, does it apply here or does it not? I mean, there may be some valuable lessons that you learned from your childhood or elsewhere in your life that make a lot of sense, and you really want to bring that forward, and you just want to be intentional and aware of what you're doing.
Well, one of the reasons why, to your point, Carol, of like being aware, like being intentional and aware, one of the reasons that's hard for us to do, many of us to do, a portion of it literally results in our brain. Let me tell you what I mean. So first of all, Carol, you got to do this. Put your hand up. Put your hand up. Put your hand up. Okay. So if you close your hand and have your thumb on the outside, right? Turn your hand this way. Do it twice.
Oh, okay.
Put them together. This is about the size of your brain for each of us, right? Our brain is about this size. Our heart, take this one over here, right here. Our heart is about that size, right? It's all of these different ways. Your height is the tip of your finger to the tip of your finger. We all know these kind of things, right? The body has a lot of symmetry. Well, go back to the brain. So if I take the two pieces of the brain apart and I open it up, inside of the brain, you have the amygdala and the limbic system. This is where our emotional center is. This is where a lot of the processes that we don't think about, that we control, but we don't think about, like breathing. We don't think about that all day, right? But if we thought about it, we could control it. Swallowing, you swallow all day, but if we think about it, we can control it. But it's here, and that's where our feelings exist.
Right.
Close it back up. The outer layer is called the cortex, or cerebral cortex. The front of it is called the frontal cortex. The cortex area is where higher levels of thought, logic, reasoning, arithmetic, language exist. Okay, so language, that's all the way up here somewhere, because in the brain it's a lot of distance, right? All the way up here somewhere. Well, when I have feelings about something, there's no words there. Right. So when I have strong feelings, what do I say? If I get scared, if I'm happy, oh my God, it's emoting, because there's no language there, right? And so teaching ourselves to stop, wait a second, and connect.
Yes.
Language and feelings. What am I trying to say? What's actually, I gotta think through this. One of our struggles is we try to divorce. Such a big word for this conversation. We try to divorce the idea that we have feelings, and we almost try to operate logically as if there's no such thing as the emotional component.
Right.
That's not, everybody has a left hand and right hand. Like everybody has two lungs. Everybody has thoughts and feelings, and those are not the same thing.
Absolutely. I definitely came into parenting thinking, because I'm a very rational person, stuff needs to make sense, things need to be connected. I mean, that's me as a person. I got that, from my father. And that's just the way I always thought, which explains why I just thought that I would be able to get these kids organized. They're going to get along. They're twins, of course. Yes.
Right. Built-in friends.
Do everything at the same time. And this is going to be easy. And I'm going to, head on back to work. I'm going to find somebody great that's going to take care of them during the day, whatever. And, and it just didn't happen that way. But it really is, I've read, this was years before I had children, but something to the effect, I think it was in a Norman Vincent Peale book, that a lot of lessons and impressions that God has tried to make with you that you just for whatever reason didn't grasp often come out through your experience with your children. And so, when I really kind of started to look at this as an opportunity to learn more about myself, learn more about my children, and that life is just not black and white the way I always viewed it. Then it really became a journey and an adventure that I really enjoyed, and especially with boys, because that was another thing I wondered about. That I was hoping for a girl, because at least I had been one.
Yeah, right. You got some frame of reference, right?
But I really and ultimately enjoyed them, learned so much from them, and that's what we really got to do: just lean in, recognize what we're bringing into it emotionally and in all of the different ways, bringing to it and how it might be affecting us for good or not so good, and just be aware of it and make the adjustments to meet the needs of the children sitting in front of you, not the children you wish they were, not the children you were dreaming about they were going to be, but the ones that are really right there in the here and now.
In real time. My 16-year-old son that goes to this nice fancy school I was talking about earlier. The reason why I even brought that up, one, it ties into the construct of self I was talking about with me as a dad bringing up these children and that internal struggle, right? That was one reason. But the other reason is this AB honor roll kid wants to be a boxer, Carol.
Oh, okay.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's go back. Right, let's deep dive into.
I know.
Culinary, under the hood. Now I want to fight professionally for a living, Dad. And I'm like, but you have But when I tell you that since this guy, he's 16 now, maybe he got his first little mobile device or tablet or laptop when he was 10 or something. I don't know how old he was at the time. When I tell you that if you catch this guy at the dining room table, laying across the couch, laying across his bed, looking at something, he was looking at old fight footage, Muhammad Ali and Jack Johnson and Joe Louis and Sugar Ray Leonard. And I'm like, he was looking at it. He was studying it. He's looking at it. He listening to podcasts about the fight game and the fight world. And he goes now. So now as a 16-year-old, he's in a very popular gym here in Baltimore, very strong, well-supported gym. And but he goes running at 5:30 in the morning before school.
Oh, he's committed.
He's serious.
Yeah.
I have seen him strap up Scully hoodie in my living room, jump roping for 30, 40 minutes straight. I mean, dripping sweat. I've seen him boxing rounds of 3 minutes, for listeners who may or may not know that. I have seen this boy practice the same combo routine. And a combo routine is only 3 or 4 moves. 2, 2, 2, 2. 2, 2, 2, 2.
Right.
For 3 minutes straight, the entire round, for 12 rounds, the time of the fight. Drilling in the mechanics, the body muscle memory of what he really got serious during the pandemic. When we were just home and had nothing else to do, so after he would finish his work, he really was like, now's my chance. What about your chance to play Nintendo? What about your chance to just eat cakes and buns and play the game? And he was like, this is my opportunity so that I'm going to he's so serious about it. And I had a conversation with my wife. I said, you know what? We can drill them, and him particularly, about his grades, because he has the capacity to have stellar grades. I was like, but at the end of the day, he gets less than, not dropping out. We're not talking about failure, right? But because he has the capacity to be top tier and he has these parents, he's grown up in a household, 5th grade, 4th grade, where it's like, hey, this is not you. This is not acceptable. You know what you can do. We know. Live up to your potential. I was like, I would like for us to consider the fact that once he graduates from this great school and he walks across and get his diploma, nobody's going to say, but you don't get a diploma, or yours has the corner bent because your grades wasn't straight A's. He's going to get the same diploma. He's going to get the same recognition as being a grad from this school. And then for his profession, 0 people are going to say, but what was your high school GPA? Like, who's asked us our high school GPA?
Right.
I was like, he's serious. He's dedicated. He wants organic this and salads. He takes naps because that's a part of healthy living, Carol. Like this. And so, but again, as a parent, as a dad, here I am faced again with this idea, because somewhere, somehow, it was put into my brain, this construct that I'm supposed to position all of my children to get through school with great grades so they can go to college so they can get a job. And what I'm not allowing myself to connect, logic and emotions are not always connected within the person, right? What I struggled for years, Carol, to connect was the reality that I work in education, right? I work in human services. I know, if I can use this word twice in a different sense, I know the pandemic of people graduating from college with tons of debt and being underemployed. These are real stats. So I'm having an internal struggle about pushing my kid out to be loaded with debt because we're supposed to. That self-check was tough. It was tough because I didn't want to be a bad dad at the end of the day.
Right. And I think I want to get you to clarify, is this kind of where you're thinking about embracing differences and recognizing that differences don't have to be bad? So it's different ways of thinking.
That's right.
And
so embracing differences is something that is literally what we've been talking about, right? And so when you sent that question over, I literally ran through all of this, right? Like, it was like the screens. I don't know if you remember the Matrix. There was one part where he was like in front of 100 screens and it was all him. Just that happened in a moment for me because my wife's 4th kid, because she has 5, she has a lot of children, Carol, goodness gracious. But her 4th, our daughter Jada, is a superstar. Her personality is a shooting star, comet across the sky. Oh my goodness, she's always just dancing and performing, and big personality. And a couple of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, she started really becoming artistic. And what I mean by that is she would make these like pastel crayon wax like shapes. Like she would make like a planet and a moon and like a galaxy scene, and like, or she would draw these faces and like do makeup on them, like on the paper, and she just was doing all of this like really artsy stuff. And she's just creating, and she's like making gels and making squishy foams, like she just was really doing it. Well, all of that somehow turned into her loving to do hair. Okay, Carol Bletta. All right, so we've gone through 45, right? We don't got one Harvard. We don't got one Princeton. We don't got one full ride academic scholarship, but we do have yet another installment of somebody who's consistently shown years of, I come alive when I work with my hands and create this, whether it's on people, whether it's on paper. Dad, I love it. Man, embarrassingly, if I can just be embarrassed for a second, share some embarrassing stuff. The number of times, Carol, that I have woken up with my eyes halfway shadowed in makeup and stuff around my mouth, and I look horrible. Oh, I look horrendous with makeup, I tell you. But for her, that's her daddy, right? So she takes my big old head and she's practicing. And when the first couple of times, I don't even think I noticed, right? Because it's just my kid playing on my face. You just get to ignore that stuff after a while. But after like the first time or two, when I would wake up and looking like Homie the Clown, figuring out what's going on. And what I realized is she's consistently expressed the desire to do this, to be in this space. You can make a lot of money helping people feel good about themselves. You can make a lot of money going into cosmetics and cosmetology. But I struggled again. Now, this is the fourth kid in. And I would love to tell you, as an emotional intelligence expert who has been trained and certified, who's a corporate trainer and has huge contracts and got some big ones right now, that by the fourth kid, I mean, the first kid or two, I should have been there, but by the fourth kid, I'm a pro. I struggled because internally, I wasn't ready to embrace the difference again. Am I failing? Am I setting my kid up for success? Is my discomfort real? Yes, it is real. Is my discomfort reflective of the fact that my child is doing something wrong? So then where is my discomfort? What is it about? And it's not that we need to have like a free for all. Just let your children just be. We cut our grass. We trim bushes, right? We wipe the table before we sit down. So it's not just like a free for all approach to life.
Yes.
But it really is a real check-in with ourselves, especially as they get older. Is it my desire that I want that they are or are not doing? Or do I actually have a real problem that I, as a parent, need to help shield them against? And if we start with the us, with the me, with the I, that process is smoother by the time we get to the kid. Because a lot of times I think what the research shows us is that those discomforts rest within us, as we said a few times. Yeah.
Right. And what you're describing here is that you're discovering your children's sweet spots and really what the lane that they want to play in and what they're committed to doing. And so just they have various interests. They right now they're not aligning with the college track, so to speak. Training, all of them require training in order to be excellent. And that's really, I think that's the next thing. When you find out what really ignites, really creates a burning desire in our children, then you can guide them and coach them in terms of go be excellent in that thing, like go serve in that thing. And so that you're bringing joy to yourself as well as to those around you, like you said, in terms of making people feel good about themselves through, cosmetology or whatever. And I think that's really what we can hope for, but it really requires a connection with your children, really observing them, but also engaging with them, having conversations with them. And that's how you'll find these things out. And that's how you can kind of course correct and say, okay, I realize this was my dream. This has nothing to do with them. Like I had a dream that once my boys started playing basketball, one was way more serious. He wanted to go to trainers. He wanted to be AAU. He wanted to be travel, all of that. And my other son was like, it's okay. I mean, of course, and both of them are tall. And so, but I had this dream that once they started playing basketball, and understand this, I never played basketball as a kid. Of course, everybody thought I should have because, ultimately became 6 feet, grew to 6 feet tall, but I wasn't interested. I played every other sport but basketball.
Really?
But once they started playing, I got really interested in it. I started playing. I didn't start playing until about 10 years ago. And in an adult league, but again, it's that thing that I didn't get to do that I regretted. I wanted to make sure they did it, and I wanted them to be on the court together as my twin towers of power, which I call them that anyway, even though they no longer play basketball. But that was my thing. Like I wanted that to happen, and of course, just through a series of events, they both having different needs in terms of educational settings. They ended up splitting up in middle school, not going to the same school. And then one was in middle school, one was in private school, one was in public school. So how were they ever going to play each other? Or how are they ever going to be on the same court?
Play together and dominate together.
How are they ever going to do that? Well, first of all, just be on the same court. But God, God works things out. He knew that I still wanted that, and that I had hoped for that long before. And just out of the blue, the two coaches, even though one was private school, one was the other, they wanted to have a scrimmage.
Wow.
So they did play. So I have this great picture of them on the court, different uniforms, and as it would happen, they were checking each other.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's a nice game. So you got to see that. You got to witness that. That was fun.
But it was their way. It happened in their way. And then my one son continued playing one more year. My other son was like, look, this is what you all wanted to do. I really want to play football. And he branched off into that. And my other son continued to play, but he played for fun through the recreation league. He just didn't like the school where he attended was almost like a Division I basketball program. And he was like, he wasn't that serious about doing that. Well, not at that time. I mean, there were things he wanted to do in high school, other clubs he wanted to do that he was interested in and all that. So he stepped away from it. But I got that moment, but it wasn't the way I wanted. I mean, it wasn't the way I had envisioned it. It was the way that made sense for the two of them.
You want to know, my son gave me one of those moments, right? So this is kid number 3. This is the boxer, right?
Oh, right.
And so when he was growing up, he was very much into everything So WWE, SmackDown, Raw, karate, jiu-jitsu, all of it, boxing, UFC, all of it, right? Well, when he was getting older, he really was honing into boxing. And I was telling him, I was like, son, listen to me. I believe, so I'm a big fight fan, Carol. I'm a huge
okay.
Yeah, so I'll travel and I'll go to a different city and be in the environment. Like big fight nights, I'm going to find somewhere that has it on screen. I'm going to have a big bucket of wings, right? Like I'm a fight fan.
Okay.
Well, I was telling him, I said, son, the way the writing is on the wall, that by the time you are a pro as an adult, the elite are going to be people that compete in multiple divisions, multiple sports, right? So I think that the boxing guy is going to be in the cage with the UFC mixed martial arts guy, and the elite is going to be these guys. So let's get ahead of the curve, right? You're on a wrestling team. You've done well. He placed in the state. He was like, Dad, I barely practice for that, so I don't need to practice at all. I'm like, no, it's going to get harder. Like, let's keep it He quit the rest of the team, and he just wanted to focus on boxing. I put him in Taekwondo so he could learn how to do some kicks and all that kind of stuff. He gave me the Carol mommy picture moment. He broke the board, right? Like he went through.
We went through
practices. He broke the board. I was elated. He was done. He never liked to go. He never wanted to go. I drug him kicking and screaming almost every time we went to practice. And eventually I was like, I'm not going to force you no more to do it, but I struggled because I was like, I'm going to embrace. So this is kid number 3, right? So I was embracing, you want to do this professionally.
Right.
You're not going to go to some top tier. Great. Okay, good. We're not going to do that. Well, let me help you then. I'm knowledgeable about the fight game. Like I study.
Right.
So let me help you position yourself, and you get this and you get this and you get this. And he wasn't interested. And I felt rejected. So emotional intelligence, is my rejection reflective of he was offensive to me, or was I simply offended? Because those are not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
I can be offended by something you did, and it doesn't mean that you were acting offensive.
Yes.
But if we don't self-check that, because this sounds great on a podcast, right? This, oh, offensive, offended, switch the ending. It sounds great.
Right, right.
But in real life, dealing with a loved one, a friend, a bestie, a child, you're wrong, kid. And you're being rude and you're being disobedient and you're not listening.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
And also, if maybe means possibilities.
Sure.
So if that's a possibility, then what are the others? What are some of the others? Let's use our words. Let's dig in. Because if that's maybe the case, then maybe something completely different. They're not being offensive. They just don't want to do that. And if that's the case, is it wrong?
Right. I
It's
agree.
not wrong. Now I'm doing some parenting check. Parenting, I believe, is a form of leadership. We know this.
Absolutely.
And the way we bring out the best in our people as leaders, whether that's parent leaders or leaders of business and industry, is by becoming different and better ourselves. Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change.
Right.
Embrace the change. Be the change we want to see. And that's so great. It's so great to say.
Yeah.
And it's tough to live. It's
Well,
tough to kind of put into practice.
as I think about all the lessons that you're gaining, that you have gained over time with the first four.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're practicing better habits when dealing with your last one?
I decided, so by our house is a store. They sell really, really big boxes. I've decided to put him in one of those, send it to China, and just be done with the whole thing of parenting altogether.
Oh,
No.
right.
I hope so. So his name is Judah. And I always tell him that his name has a lion reference to it, like King of the Jungle type thing. And this dude is a brave guy. I mean, from his youngest years, he would climb and jump, and he would hurt himself and just shake it off. And sometimes he'd be angry that he hurt himself. I'm like, that's not the proper response to hurting yourself. Like, you don't be mad that you hurt yourself. Like, you're supposed to feel the pain. And he's mad that he even got hurt in the first place. But the other part of it is that sometimes he can have rage. And I told him that courage and rage actually share a root word, right? And the difference is the heart, the core. That first part of that word. So yeah, you can have strong feelings, but if you don't have the heart that goes with it, that takes care, the courage, not just the rage, I need you to live in this part of your lion self, my son, and not the other part. I've been telling him that, Carol, since he got here, right? Maybe since he was a baby. Well, one of the things that my conversations with him, taking lessons from the four,
all right,
and kind of putting it here between he and I, out of all five of them, he seems to need dad differently than all of them. It's almost as if we have like a life support connected. Like he is with me. He is around me. He wants to sleep here, right? Like he wants to be under me all the time, just around me. And I didn't have that growing up. So Judah is presenting a completely different.
See what I'm saying?
Completely different. I don't know what it's like to have such a close parenting dynamic, because I told you with my four, because they were so close in age, I made them interdependent. So I fostered them having that connection. I was there, right? The girl could draw my face. I was there, but I taught them how to be that for each other. Well, so I do this little, I'm putting my hand up a whole lot for our little talk shit, Carol. So these are my four teenagers. And this guy over here, right? Like this little guy, right? And so because he doesn't have a them, part of the natural dynamic that happened was when they're all double digit, 10, 12, 13, 14 together, like we're clumped right around each other, he can't go. He's 6, he's 4, he's 5, right? And so where is he? He's with dad. So instead of that being a punishment place, and I also didn't want it to be a punishment place, just because you're too young to go to the park with them, you didn't do anything wrong, I'm not going to punish you. Well, he that became a fun thing for him. So
Right.
now I have a completely different learning of self and
Right.
learning of my emotions.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? And is he draining my battery? And
Mhm.
is he actually draining my battery? Or do I just don't know how to be present as a daddy in this kind of way? He's draining my battery. No, he's not draining my
Nah,
battery.
I was getting ready to say
He's
no.
not draining.
I mean, it's
No,
kind
he's
of
not
gets
draining.
back to what I was saying, that he's his experience with you is kind of completing what God wants wants you to be, what he wants you to have. You know,
It's a good way to look at it, right? It's
mhm,
a good way to look at it. It
mhm,
keeps me from shipping him to China. If you say
right.
it like that, Carol. If you say it like that, then I guess I won't put
You
him in the
better
box
not.
anymore.
You better not put him in the box.
We'll be right back after this. Are you a parent looking to unlock your potential in raising confident, capable, and courageous children? Well, look no further. Join us at the upcoming Parent and Purpose Summit Back to School Edition, where parenting experts from around the world will come together to share their wisdom and insights. I'm Carol Maletta, founder of the Parenting 411. This summit is your opportunity to gain essential skills and tools to become the parent you've always aspired to be. Over 5 incredible days, we'll dive deep into topics like positive discipline, effective communication, mental health, self-care, school readiness, and more. An attendee from our last summit told us, "This summit changed my parenting game. I feel more confident and connected with my children than ever before." So secure your seat at the Parent and Purpose Summit today. Visit parentandpurposesummit2023.com. That's Parent and Purpose Summit 2023.com. And click the registration button to join us on this transformative journey. The Parent and Purpose Summit, where intentional parenting begins. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
So, it's great what you're talking about is so important, that getting to know each child individually, spending time with them. I talk about this a lot with parents. They call it
Yeah.
special time, when it's a regular kind of engagement, a regular appointment that you have with your children, or regular patterns of things you do. So it's just one parent, one child, where you're able to connect and just talk, and in ways that you don't get to do when the family is running off to this event, that event, or just doing daily routines in the house. You're
Right.
connecting with them on a whole different level, and I think it's great. And another thing that you and I have talked about previously was just even about the importance of routines, and sleep routines and waking up routines, and how that can really provide some emotional security
It
for
it it it
children.
does. And in our case, in this home, the routine came from my wife, right? So she was the one that was like,
That was me
7:15
too.
is this. That was you too, right? So I give her what I found my most comfortable role, the way I could show up in a way that was true to myself, was kind of like reinforcing that, right?
Right.
It was valuable. And I remember when they were really young, Carol, one of our parenting dynamics that we had to learn how to settle in the middle on
Mhm.
was, for the longest time during the school year, she wanted bedtime to be consistent on the weekends. And so I got 7-year-olds that got to go to bed at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. And I'm like, wait, let's not. Well, before they get to be 7, when they were like 4 or 5, I'm still in the mindset of, maybe mom's right. Maybe I don't have the agency to say. And so what I learned in us finding our routine and
Mhm.
us finding how to structure things so that they are healthy, whole
Mhm.
people,
Mhm.
was once again another exercise of, where am I? Who am I? What's my truth? All of those are connected to feelings. All
Mhm.
of those are connected to the emotional experience of self.
Mhm.
And so instead of diagnosing how wrong she was,
Mhm.
If I can just be frank, I thought she was wrong, right? That
Mhm.
is wrong.
Mhm.
Instead of taking that approach,
Mhm.
what I over time,
Mhm.
over time, what I found out was more effective for me to do is why is it important to me?
Mhm.
Because if I don't even know why it's important to me, I'm fighting against what? What am I fighting for? What am I fighting against? What am I actually trying to establish or not have happen? What is that?
Mhm.
And once I realize in all of the situations, right? But just using like weekend bedtime, for example, once I realize what I actually was trying to accomplish, then I can communicate that
Yes.
to her. This is what I actually need. And so then she gets to say, right? Because now I'm being the change. So
Mhm.
then she got to say, well, this is what I actually need.
Right.
And so now, so if I help make sure that this part is done, and you could help make sure that I, as a parent, am providing this for my children, does this check both of our boxes? It's not always
Right.
that smooth,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's the mindset. But it starts with me figuring out, why do I have a problem? I had a problem with Christmas. I
Mm.
had a problem because I grew up in a household that didn't do holidays at
Okay.
all,
Okay.
right? And so I meet this young lady in college, and I'm watching her wrap gifts one year in college.
Right.
And
Right.
she says, my grandmother used to sit me down and teach me how to wrap gifts for my little brothers.
Oh.
There was so much love that came out of that statement. And I was like, I want that in my home. Like, I want to do that. Like, I want
Right.
that.
Right. 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 Right.
But I hadn't dealt with my scruples. I hadn't dealt with, this is wrong. Sometimes this is wrong just means it's going up against a certain line of thinking, a dogma, a
It's
teaching.
different.
It's just different,
Right. Right.
necessarily wrong. And if we
Mhm.
don't take the time, Carol, as people growing in our skillfulness, in our parenting, right? In our parenting skillfulness, if we don't take the time to literally breathe, to literally self assess and come across, we are going to feel the angsty. And sometimes our angsty comes out as anger, as
Mhm.
demands,
Mhm.
as rejection. Fine, do what you want. I have a loved one in my family, extended family. Um, and she has children that are a lot older. She also has grandchildren in our family now as well. And the number of times, Carol, that I've heard her say, "Fine, I'll just never talk to you again." And I'm
Mhm.
like, that's such a heavy-handed approach, and
Mhm.
it's used a lot, right? And there's a saying in the world, the cliche, Carol, that says, "To a hammer, everything's a
Mhm.
nail."
That's right.
Everything's a nail. Like, but if I got other tools in my belt, now I don't have to hit and strike. Well, I'll never talk to you again. Take that, take that. And but she hasn't always, she called me over the weekend. Um, she was like, I need some of your professional psychology. And I don't want to play that role in the family always,
Right.
sometimes I have, what you say?
No, I was just.
Oh,
Mhm.
um, because what happens, Carol, is that it positions my experience, and maybe some of our listeners also know about this. My experience is that sometimes I have a very weighty position in our greater family,
Sure.
and they listen to what I say or what I don't say in a way that can kind of override things. And so, first of all, I didn't ask for that, right? It's sometimes it's like a responsibility that can be a lot to deal with, because I've seen arguments with me sitting right there with them, and they're like, "Well, Chris said,
All right. Yeah.
well, because ask Chris." And now my voice, and so now I have to do all of these internal checks
Mhm.
in real time.
Right.
What am I feeling?
Mhm.
What's my preferences? What are my thoughts? Because thoughts and feelings are not the same thing. Can I give a real quick example? I'm gonna get back to the family weightiness in a minute, and providing this sense of structure, emotional
Mhm.
stability, right? One of the things that I learned from a mentor
Mhm.
earlier in my career
Mhm.
was that there was a difference between thoughts and feelings. I don't know, because in our language, Carol, we say things like, well, I just feel as though you're wrong.
Right.
How do you feel? Well,
you're wrong.
I feel that was a stupid decision.
I just told you.
Right. Well, that's a thought connected to a feeling. The feeling is hurt, happy, sad, and there's something literally. It's a little kitty chart. It's a circle.
I have,
feelings. Right. You also the chart with the faces. That's a great one too.
I have
right?
that one
I use
too.
that in my little therapeutic, because I got into therapy some years ago. I was against it for years because I wasn't crazy. So why do I need therapy, Carol? Like, I'm not crazy. And I realized that if people can use a personal trainer for their physical body, why don't we use a personal trainer for our mental emotional self, right? I eventually embraced that. It was one of the best decisions that I've ever done, right? Well, checking in with myself in those very real family moments of, what am I feeling? Okay. Put words to that. What are you feeling? Then I get a word. Okay. Why? Because. That's not a great reason. That is not a great reason. Because. No. Pause. Let's go through. Why are we feeling like this? And then as I'm doing this, and then I'm also playing traffic cop. I used that term earlier, right? So now, but I'm not playing traffic cop out loud. I'm playing traffic cop internally as I watch what's going on, as I see what's going on. And then I realize I need to say things in a way that results in our greater growth.
Right.
And sometimes that's not indicating who's right and who's wrong. A lot of times that starts with validating experiences. Because I have a buddy of mine, Carol, he says this. He says that it is healthier to approach situations. He's a very learned individual with all of his backgrounds, but I really value this statement. He said it's healthiest to approach a situation knowing that everyone is rational and right thinking from their purview. And so if I had their same abuses, traumas, opportunities, gifts, disappointments, and I was here and those things happened, what would I think?
Right.
Really close to what. And so if I approach it thinking, and that's also a tool, it's called the awareness wheel, right? And so I think part of the expertise of emotional intelligence is not just being so adept at doing personal check-ins and telling the stories about it, but like, how can you help me after the podcast is over? Awareness wheel is something that's out there. The feelings wheel is something that's out there. Literally tons of emotions that we know, but seeing them collected, color coded in a circle and how they're connected to other feelings helps us be like, that's what I was. It's a word for it. Now I can identify it. And with that identification, now I can start. Right. And so that's the other aspect, I think.
Yeah. And, and as I heard you talking about the family dynamic, extended family dynamic, I'm talking about, it also brought to mind why your professional work is so important. And so imagine if parents were doing these kinds of things, the check-ins and everything that we've been talking about already with their children in the home, and then sent them out into the world of work and all of the different sectors, what it could be like. And so we know that it's not quite like that. And hence why we need Rodney C. Burris to come into these corporations and to talk about that. So I want to, as we're drawing to a close, I do want to hear a little bit about how the work that you're doing, the idea of emotional intelligence, how you're using that professionally. So
3 or 4 years ago, I had the bright idea that I was going to try to impact the school system. And the emotional intelligence catchword in academia is mindfulness, right? At its core, it's the same stuff. Taking a moment, doing check-in, and then from there, acting differently, hopefully better than what I would have done without the check-in, right? Without the mindfulness check. Okay. Well, some years ago, I was interviewed to be a part of the school board, and I met with the mayor, and I met with somebody from the governor's office here in Baltimore City, and I was doing all of this stuff. It didn't quite work out. Admittedly, I felt a little dejected. My mom was like, "It's good. Sometimes your children need to see you not win, Chris." I was like,
Okay.
"Thanks a lot, Mama." She was like, "No." She said, "Sometimes your children need to see that their dad doesn't always win because you put unrealistic, you set the bar in an unrealistic way for them sometimes." And I was like, man, I didn't even consider that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom from mama. Shout out to moms, right? So that didn't go exactly how I wanted to. Well, long story short, still working, still moving. I got invited to do emotional intelligence trainings for a very high level group of folks. And when I say high level, this is for the executive leadership of the Federal Department of Education.
Okay.
Federal Department of Education has 4,000 employees, right? But it's only a subset of them that are the executive leaders, right? These 4,000 employees undergird public education in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this idea. I want to your point, if the parents can't do it for us because we're all still learning and growing, then I can do it through the schools, right? Here in Baltimore, we do this mindfulness, this self-check. We start at the elementary level and we grow a generation of Americans that are doing these self-check-ins and interacting differently, right? That's great. And it didn't go that way. But as time went and we're still moving and progressing, I'm in a position now that over time, so this is a multi-year contract, I'm very grateful for it, training the executive leaders on emotional intelligence, skill set, mindfulness, all of that sort of thing. At that level, will have a trickle-down effect to the 4,000 employees. Those 4,000 employees touch the millions of Americans that are in school right now. And so it won't happen tomorrow. It's not the trainings that I've done last week that's going to affect the people in Nebraska, Oklahoma. But over time, I get to contribute. I don't get to just change it magically with my wand, right? I wish.
Right.
But I get to contribute to the emotional health of these people who then, Carol, get to go home and interact with their parents with some of the skills and tools that are becoming a part of the academic setting, right? And so that professionally, and I know that to me, I think that sounds amazing and lofty, right? It's not lost on me that sounds lofty, and it's not lost on me that I think I'm unbelievably appreciative of being into this position. And so professionally, and we're going to end here professionally, because you said let's wrap up, so I got you, Carol. there's a correlation between people moving up in their profession, manager, executive, all that kind of stuff, and the emotional intelligence, what they call EQ, like IQ. Yeah. The EQ scores dropping as people move up. Why? Because in our society, and that study was done by Forbes.com, right? Fortune 500, that whole company. Well, why is that the case? That's the case because we as a society, we have embraced promoting each other based on how well we get the job done. Accomplished, check the box. Well, checking that box doesn't necessarily mean I'm taking care of the people around me. I'm just making a sale. I'm just hitting the metrics, the quota. Yeah. And we have done that so well that across industries in the United States of America, the lowest score for emotional intelligence is in the C-suite.
And that's so interesting because we have moved beyond that industrial age mentality, and then and then on through the 50s, and what was that show that was it admin about the advertising agency?
I don't remember that one at all.
But I don't know. I'm just saying, but it's that whole thing about getting things done, not worrying about emotions. You just got to get things done. We know so much more now, or it's been packaged in such a way that laymen can understand it so much better now. But yet you're telling me that we still have that problem today.
At the highest level.
I mean, you would think we'd be so much more evolved now by having benefit of this information. So that's
your podcast helps, though, Carol.
Huh?
Like I think your podcast helps. And so, I was actually at the beginning before we started recording, I was asking you, are you still looking for guests? The reason why that conversation came up is because I was telling people that I was coming to share a conversation here about the 411 and parenting, just the work that you're trying to do, that you are doing. And I think it's invaluable. So as a person who, people still get here the same way, right?
Right.
People, as open as we are about everybody just live and let live, people still get here by having a mom and a dad give us a little Carol, a little whoever, right? That's still how life works. Until we come up with some newfangled way to get little people, right now the people still come the same way. Parenting is an inextricable part of society.
Yes.
And your platform is designed to strengthen the mindset, the skill set of parents. That's almost everybody. So just like I was saying that my contribution with the Department of Education is going to have its little portion, I absolutely, that's why I was talking about you to some people who have their own platforms, right? Who are out there doing this work. I was talking about what you do, Carol, because I believe it contributes to the overall health of our society. And again, that's lofty, but I believe it.
Well, thank you. That's what I like to believe as well. So as we wrap up, why don't you tell us how we can follow you and your work?
Absolutely. So my mama named me Rodney C. Burris, Rodney C. You guys know it stands for Christopher, Rodney C. And Burris is Burris. That's across every social media. That's rodneycburris.com. My email address is info@rodneycburris.com, like you name it. So I would love to connect. If anything that Carol and I talked about resonated and it feels good for you, and we want to just kind of unpack that more, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed how you talked about that inner work that you've done with yourself as a parent, recognizing that you have to meet the moment with your children, and they came here with certain temperaments and desires and aspirations, and that I admire what you have done to be able to usher them to their greatness and their excellence, even regardless of what it looks like.
Right.
So I appreciate that. And of course, to our listeners, I always am so glad that you take the time to listen and follow us. Continue to follow the Parenting 411 at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, you can catch the video of this podcast on YouTube if you'd like to go back and say, let me see what that was that Rodney said again. Let me see, I missed something. By all means, come back there, like and subscribe, both here on all of your favorite podcast platforms, as well as at YouTube. And remember that it is never too late for you to be the parent you want to be. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you next time.